What's up, Whites Army? Your boy is back with some absolutely mind-blowing news that's gonna shake Elland Road to its very foundations. I'm telling you right now, what I'm about to share with you will have every single Leeds fan either jumping for joy or pulling their hair out in pure frustration. We've got 3 massive bombshells that have just dropped, and trust me when I say this, the future of our beloved Leeds United hangs in the balance. I'm talking about a young striker whose loan spell has become an absolute nightmare that's making us question everything. A legendary striker who's carrying the weight of our entire season on his shoulders, and a boardroom revelation that could either save us from past disasters or show we're still making the same catastrophic mistakes. Listen up, Whites Army. Before we dive into this emotional roller coaster, smash that like button if you bleed white. Hit subscribe and ring that notification bell because you do not want to miss a single update about our beautiful, chaotic, heart-stopping Leeds United. Your support means everything, and we're building the strongest Leeds community on YouTube. Right here, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about how these 3 stories are about to unfold. The first one involves a young talent who was supposed to be our future but is currently having Spanish fans questioning whether he was ever good enough for La Liga. The second story is about pressure, expectations, and one man who could either be our savior or the reason our season falls apart. And the third, oh man, the third story reveals exactly what our board has learned from past catastrophes and whether they're finally protecting us from another Elland Road exodus. Are you ready to find out which young striker has just become the talk of Spanish? Football for all the wrong reasons, because what I'm about to tell you about this loan disaster will make your blood boil. Right then, Whites Army, remember that young striker I was teasing you about? Well, hold on to your scarves, because I'm about to reveal the name that's got every Leeds fan's heart sinking into their boots. We're talking about Mateo Joseph. That's right, our former wonder kid who threw his toys out of the pram this summer, handed in a transfer request, and refused to join our preseason tour in Germany. Joseph thought he was too good for the championship and demanded a move to La Liga with RCD Mallorca. And now the Spanish reality is hitting him like a sledgehammer. Here's where it gets absolutely brutal. Whites Army, Mateo Joseph has played 3 games for Mallorca, and the stats are gonna make you either laugh or cry. 0 goals, 0 assists, and Spanish fans are already writing him off as the weakest part of the team. Can you believe it? The lad who thought he was ready for Spanish football can't even get on the score sheet. But here's what's really doing my head in. Mallorca fans are comparing Joseph unfavorably to Sile Larin, who scored 7 goals in 32 games last season before moving to Feyenoord. 7 goals in 32 games wasn't exactly world class, but Joseph just can't even reach that level. One Mallorca fan brutally said, "I don't see him improving Larin's numbers," and honestly, Whites Army, that's a damning indictment of where Joseph's career is heading. The most heartbreaking part. Mateo Joseph has faced Barcelona, came on at halftime in a 3-0 thrashing, drew with Celta Vigo, and lost 2-1 to Real Madrid, missing a big chance along the way. The Spanish fans are questioning whether bringing him in was an irresponsibility and whether he'll ever deliver the numbers. Think about this, Whites Army. While we're struggling for goals in the championship, the striker who thought he was too good for us is proving Spanish fans right when they say he needs talented players behind him to succeed. Maybe, just maybe, Daniel Farke was right to let him go after that disgraceful transfer request. But wait, that's just the beginning of our striker crisis. Because what I'm about to tell you about the pressure on our main man up front is gonna have you questioning whether we've set ourselves up for disaster. Whites Army, if you thought the Mateo Joseph situation was frustrating, then buckle up because this next story is going to send your anxiety levels through the roof. We're talking about Dominic Calvert-Lewin and the absolutely massive pressure that former Leeds legend John Newsom says is crushing our main striker. Our Premier League experience, Calvert-Lewin has been brought in to fire us back to the top flight, but here's the gut-wrenching reality that's keeping every Leeds fan awake. At night, he's literally carrying our entire season on his shoulders with no proper backup. Newsom didn't mince his words when he said we desperately needed more attacking reinforcements, and the fact that the transfer window closed without them means Calvert-Lewin is our only hope. Dominic Calvert-Lewin has already shown us the pressure is getting to him. Remember that nightmare debut against Sheffield Wednesday? Missing chance after chance before blazing that penalty over the bar like he was trying to hit the moon. That's the kind of performance that can destroy a striker's confidence. And with Mateo Joseph proving he wasn't good enough anyway, Calvert-Lewin knows there's nowhere to hide. The worst part about this whole Calvert-Lewin situation, White's Army, is that John Newsom has perfectly summed up our dilemma. He said, you bring in Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who I think we all know is a very good footballer, but we gotta keep him fit. But I do think we need a little bit more backup. So I'm disappointed, ultimately, that they haven't brought anyone in. Here's what's really grinding my gears. We spent $100 million on 10 new players this summer, but Daniel Farke is still frustrated because we failed to land Harry Wilson from Fulham on deadline day. Stuart Dallas warned us about PSR restrictions, saying they can't just go and spend so much money on one striker. But that doesn't help Calvert-Lewin, who knows one injury could end our promotion dreams. But here's what's really doing my head in. With Lucas Mecha and Joe Pirro as our other options, Calvert-Lewin is the only proven Premier League striker we have. If he can't handle the championship pressure, if his injury problems return, if he loses confidence after more performances like Sheffield Wednesday, then we're absolutely screwed. The pressure on Calvert-Lewin is so intense that every shot he takes, every chance he misses, every game he doesn't score becomes a crisis. And with Mateo Joseph proving in Spain that he was never the answer anyway, Calvert-Lewin knows the entire. White's Army is depending on him to fire us back to the Premier League. But hold on to your hats, White's Army, because what I'm about to reveal next is a story that shows exactly whether our board has learned from past disasters or if we're still making the same catastrophic mistakes that could destroy everything. Right then, White's Army, this is it. The moment that connects every single emotion we've been building up. While Mateo Joseph is proving he was never good enough for us and Calvert-Lewin carries impossible pressure, there's been a massive revelation. From Robbie Evans that shows whether our board has finally learned from the relegation disaster that nearly destroyed our club. Robbie Evans has just dropped some absolute truth bombs about our new contract strategy. And what he's revealed will have every Leeds fan either feeling relieved or completely terrified about our future. The managing director has finally addressed the catastrophic relegation loan clauses that saw us lose players for absolutely nothing after our Premier League drop. Here's the brutal reality, White's Army. When we got relegated in 2023, nearly every single player had a relegation loan clause that allowed them to leave for nothing. We couldn't refuse, we couldn't negotiate, we just had to watch helplessly as our squad was dismantled. The sell-on values were destroyed, and we were left powerless while players walked away from Elland Road without bringing in a single penny. Evans has categorically confirmed that none of our 10 new signings this summer have those catastrophic loan clauses. He said, I can say categorically we do not have any relegation loan clauses, which I found to be by far the most catastrophic. You lose a player for nothing. Finally, some protection for our investments. But here's where it gets complicated. Robbie Evans admits that some players still have relegation sale clauses. But here's the crucial difference. These are at a price, at or above, normally well above, the price we paid for them. At least if the worst happens, we won't lose players for nothing like we did with Jorginho Rudder, Crescencio Somerville, and Archie Gray. Evans is confident that any player that comes down either will be in control of their sale or not. Or, if they're sold, I'm comfortable with the return they'll have generated to make it worth our while to have them. This means Calvert-Lewin and our other new signings can't just walk away for free if we face another relegation disaster. The emotional impact on us Leeds fans is absolutely massive. For 2 years, we've lived with the trauma of watching our best. Players disappear for nothing, leaving us financially crippled and competitively weakened. Evans is basically saying those days are over. But with Mateo Joseph struggling in Spain and Calvert-Lewin under enormous pressure, we need to make sure we never face relegation again. Here's the bottom line. White's Army, our board, has finally learned that losing players for nothing is a catastrophic mistake that nearly killed our club. But with our striker situation still precarious and the pressure mounting on Calvert-Lewin to deliver, we're walking a tightrope between success and disaster. Smash that like button If you're relieved the board has finally learned from past mistakes, hit subscribe and turn on notifications because this Leeds United story is far from over. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think Calvert-Lewin can handle the pressure, or are we setting him up to fail like Mateo Joseph in Spain? The future of Leeds United hangs in the balance. White's army, one with Calvert-Lewin as our main hope, Mateo Joseph proving he was never the answer, and Robbie Evans finally protecting us from contract catastrophes. This season could either be our redemption or our downfall. What do you think? Is this the season we finally get back to where we belong, or are we destined for more heartbreak at Elland Road? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, we are Leeds United and we'll never give up marching on together.